right, ladies and gentlemen, we are switching it up. Not just one notch, we're switching it up 2 notches here. We're going to have an exclusive interview, and I want to welcome on our moderator, Benzinga's own Justin Roberti. There he is. Justin.
Hey, how you doing, Brent?
We haven't formally met before, I don't think, have we?
This is we're doing this for camera.
We're doing it live. And let me just say,
exactly.
we'll do it live. Let me just say, I have seen you on a few of our other events, and you do a fantastic job. I am a fan. First time caller, long time fan.
Thank you. I always see you up in the comments when we're broadcasting. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll let you take it away. You're going to be talking with Lineage Cell Therapeutics.
Yes, I'm going to be talking to Brian Culley, who's the CEO of Lineage Cell Therapeutics. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Hey, Justin. Happy to be here. I'm doing really well. Yourself?
Good. We're very happy to have you. I was just saying hello to Brent, so I kind of scooped myself, but I'll introduce you again. We have Brian Culley, the CEO of Lineage Cell Therapeutics, with us. Brian, so you taking a quick look at your background, you have a pretty long history in emerging healthcare. How has that impacted your approach to working with Lineage? Impacted maybe when you identified the opportunity that was within Lineage?
Well, thanks, Justin. So Lineage being a public company, I just start by saying that I may make some forward-looking statements in this discussion, and people can learn more about our risk factors through our filings. And then to your question, yeah, my background is in both science and business. I have advanced degrees in both science and business. I spent many years as a bench scientist. This is the 3rd public company that I've run, so I think pulling together the science and business as a background is valuable. You don't have to really outsource that quite so much, and I rely on both of those domains every single day. I also spend many years as a long distance competitive runner, so I bring the competitive side as well. So those 3 attributes have helped me very well over the last 3 years running Lineage.
Really? Competitive running. Well, that's very interesting. And how would you characterize what is Lineage's mission? How would you characterize what you've been trying to accomplish in your tenure there and the mission of the company overall?
Yeah, well, Lineage, it sounds, almost crazy in how ambitious it is, but I think it's very defensible, and that is that we are trying to usher in a new branch of medicine. People have heard about cell therapy for many, many years, and the promises of cell therapy have been held out there for many years. But there's been a maturation in the industry, the tools that we use, the knowledge we've collected, and I feel we're on the brink of explosive growth and breakout knowledge and understanding of exactly how and where to utilize cell therapy to generate new medicines beyond the reach of traditional approaches.
Mm-hmm. And you have more people doing more hands-on therapy, leading up to the end of the moratorium on cell therapies. There have been a moratorium on the restrictions up until May this year. So there's been some strides forward this year, certainly driven by the pandemic as well. But let's make a distinction. Do you consider Lineage to be more in the area of regenerative medicine or a cell therapy specifically?
Justin, that's a good question. Both. We're both a regen med company and a cell therapy company, but they're very broad terms. Regenerative medicine, includes things like aging research, but that's really research. That's understanding the aging process. That's not developing medicines, in the near term that are going to reach patients. But we are in regenerative medicine because we work on some of the conditions of aging, right? When you get very old, you develop things like cancer and blindness. And so we are regen med from that perspective. And then we also are a cell therapy company because the way that we treat patients is we deliver an entire cell to them. So we don't deliver a little molecule or a tiny little antibody. We actually manufacture and transplant brand new replacement parts, whole cells. So it's like an auto parts repair. You've got a kind of cell in your body which is broken. We manufacture that kind of cell and then transplant it to the body. So we are both regen med and cell therapy.
You had described when we were talking earlier, you had compared Lineage to being an Amazon of this, like Amazon.com, of this type of therapy. Is that because of the range of uses that are available with the kind of whole cell therapy that you're talking about? Where does that comparison come from?
Yeah, there are a lot of parallels that one might want to draw, but the one that I'm really speaking to when I talk about us and I talk about Amazon is that in 1997, Amazon only sold books, and they had about 2.5 million volumes. Now, everything you can imagine is sold by Amazon. And the parallel with Lineage is that right now, we manufacture only 3 of the cell types that exist in the human body. We manufacture a special kind of retina cell, a spinal cord cell, and a kind of immune cell. But there are about 200 different cell types which comprise the human body. So we are working out of and building from a platform technology which might be able to go far beyond where we are today. So when I talk about Lineage having an Amazon-like opportunity, I might not necessarily mean in terms of market value, but I absolutely mean conceptually being able to broaden and have a platform that can deliver a lot more than what we're doing just today.
And it speaks to the kinds of therapies, the range of conditions that can be treated with this kind of therapy, I imagine. Correct?
That's correct.
Recently, I think 2 days ago, Bloomberg put out a report projecting the growth for cell therapy between now and 2026. It seems like an area that certainly has a lot of upside. What do you think is driving the interest in cell therapy and cell transplant? As we discussed, it's something that's been talked about abstractly for the past 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are probably 2 very significant drivers. One is success, right? Success attracts capital, and success attracts copycats. So there's been a lot of success in cell therapy, especially in cancer. In other areas, we haven't had as many breakthroughs. So that's uncharted territory, and that represents an opportunity. But in oncology, in the treatment of cancer, cell therapy is doing some amazing things. And that leads me to the second part of the answer, which is that using an entire cell can accomplish things that a small molecule cannot. Now, it's not going to be suitable in every imaginable disease or every imaginable injury or setting, but the power of using an entire cell, more like a transplant, rather than administering chemicals, individual molecules to people, I think that's really what underlies the power of cell therapy. And if you look at something like bone marrow transplant, right? Massively successful for decades. We know it works. So I think there's a lot of reasons for people to have those very exciting projections about what the future is going to bring in cell therapy as we continue to sort of unlock the secrets of it.
So how is Lineage differentiating itself in this kind of bleeding edge space? I mean, there's so much interest, there's so much capital pouring in. You've talked a bit about the whole cell approach. Is that kind of one of your big differentiators?
That's one of them, but all of the cell therapy companies are using whole cells. But where we are different is actually, it's in the word different. We use differentiated cells. So what I mean by that is that there are a lot of cell therapy companies and cell therapy clinics that use what are called stem cells. So those are undifferentiated. They're sort of, it's an unwritten script. It's a blank cell, and we don't really yet know how and where to use them. And so people are injecting those cells into their knees and all over their bodies to see what can happen. We don't do that. We never put a stem cell into a human being. What we do is we use a stem cell as starting material. And from that starting material, we manufacture the specific cell type. So if you need retina cells, we'll manufacture the retina cells and transplant those. So just like flour can become a cookie or can become bread, and those are different things and you use them for different reasons, stem cells can become other cell types. And so that's our edge, is that we make specific cell types and then use those specific types of cells that you need as the medicine for the body.
Interesting. So one of your lead programs, OpRegen, is being developed to treat AMD, which, if I'm not mistaken, it's a thinning of the cornea among men, causes blurred vision and eye dryness, if I'm not mistaken. How is can you provide some background on how OpRegen is addressing that, and how widespread is this? I think I know people who have suffered from this.
This is one of pardon me. This is dry AMD stands for dry age-related macular degeneration. So this is one of the leading causes of blindness. It's estimated about 12 million people in this country have it. Wow. And what this is actually it's characterized by the death of specialized retina cells called RPE. So in the back of your eye, the RPE cells perform a lot of critical functions that basically permit you to see things. But as you age, especially as you get into your 70s and your 80s, those retina cells, they're working really hard and they get tired and they die off. And so when they do die off, you lose your vision. Primarily, you lose your central vision. So your ability to recognize faces or to be able to look at your phone, read words in a book, you lose that central vision first. And as those retina cells die off and continue to die off, it continues. And incredibly, despite being one of the leading causes of blindness and a fairly common condition, there are no FDA-approved therapies. If you are diagnosed with dry AMD, your ophthalmologist will tell you, quit smoking and eat vegetables. That's all that really they have available. So what we are trying to do is we will manufacture replacement cells and we'll transplant them to your retina. And in doing so, we're looking to slow that disease process and even potentially reverse it.
It's interesting. So it's something that up till now has maybe been put in the category of these are the costs, these are the ravages of aging. There's not really anything to do about it up until now. Now there is, of course, something that can be done. That's very interesting. So how does your approach differ from others in terms of clinical development? I think you just touched on it. You were talking about retinal regeneration.
Yeah, this is really the most important thing that this company's been able to accomplish. The human beings do not have the ability to regenerate retina. If I cut my skin, right, it'll heal because I have that healing capacity, but I can't do that with my retina. When those retina cells die off, they're gone forever, irrevocably. So what we have been able to show is that little wound in the back of the eye that starts as a tiny little pinpoint and it gets worse. They largely grow outward, right? So it's almost like one of these big forest fires that we have here in California. It just kind of randomly spreads out. And of course, that kills your vision when it hits the critical part of your retina. So what we have been able to show is that we have been able to actually transplant RPE cells and recover critical layers of retinal tissue in the eye in places where it wasn't present before. So this is kind of like the starfish growing the new arm, right? We're transplanting those cells. They are integrating. They are not being rejected. We've had 0 cases of rejection across 24 patients that have been treated. And we've actually seen several patients who have literally had an area of atrophy or an area of damage get smaller. So it's sort of like a healing of the wound. That's incredible. It doesn't happen naturally, and no other company has ever shown that to be possible. So we're really excited that. But what really matters even beyond that is, can you see better, right? That's what the patient cares about. Everybody would like these wounds to go away, but ultimately it's my ability to see. I mean, what good is it to live to 120 if you're blind at 80, right? A third of your life spent blind. That's frustrating. So we also actually just earlier today reported that we are seeing statistically significant differences in visual acuity. And this is assessed by a standard eye chart, reading letters on an eye chart from a distance. We have seen statistically significant differences in treated eyes compared to untreated eyes, because as you imagine, most people have 2 eyes and you treat one so that you can compare the other. So we're really excited that we're seeing both anatomical and functional improvements in individuals with this condition.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing, really. We're talking about the kind of thing that would have been considered miracle medicine, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a good friend of mine's a best-selling sci-fi writer, but he used to do a job similar to mine, and we joke about it. It almost sounds too good to be true. But the amazing thing about the eye is you can take pictures, right? You can do imaging, so you can put a camera up and you can actually see the area of atrophy on a very fine level and all those little layers of retina. So it's not one of these conditions where you say, well, how do you feel, Justin? Do you feel better today or do you feel worse today? That's very subjective. These are objective pictures just looking at the anatomy. And the anatomy, if it changes over time, you can trace that. So it really is powerful if you're able to show those differences in these imaging techniques that are available for viewing the retina.
Justin's feeling old almost every day. So maybe I'm hoping that you'll catch up with my aging process, and then you can help me.
We'll get a few more cell types going, whatever ails you. Give me time.
Exactly. Just all of them. I'll just take a general lineup of whatever you got. I understand that you've got some specific milestones for OpRegen. What should people be looking out for this year? Next 12 months?
Yeah, a couple of them in the very near term. Before the end of the year, we expect all of our patients will reach at least 12 months of follow-up. So that's a very common clinically relevant time frame. So we'll do a data update with everyone having at least 12 months of follow-up, all 24 patients. Some of them, by the way, are out now 5 years or more. The other thing that we'll do is we will be participating at a major medical conference called AAO. That's probably the biggest ophthalmology event of the year, and so we'll be able to share our data at that conference. Wow. We are going to be interacting with FDA around the end of the year and additionally into next year on a couple of things that are important to the program. So there are a lot of important events coming up for the OpRegen lead program OpRegen.
Oh, that's amazing. So I understand also spinal cord injuries. I mean, honestly, spinal cord injuries are probably one of the most discussed usages, sort of the go-to example for how a cell therapy, regenerative therapy can help improve lives. Obviously, because spinal cord injury can be so incredibly debilitating. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and testing around spinal cord injuries?
Yeah, this is, literally the clinical program that we have right now, where 25 people have been dosed with our spinal cord program. It's literally the very first clinical program to be supported by CIRM, the California Stem Cell Agency. Mm-hmm. So it really is sort of the prototypical use. And what we're doing here is we are manufacturing the cell type that comprises your spinal cord. And that's important because that is the area that gets damaged. So if you think about sort of, the car crash, the diving board accident, typically young men are the ones that are suffering these injuries, and a little area of damage, a little wound, just like I was describing the eye, but now it's in the spinal cord. That wound will form and the cells will die. So we manufacture those cells and we administer those into the spinal cord. And what we're trying to do is provide that electrical connectivity between your brain and your upper extremities in particular, because even just a little bit of movement, right? If I'm able to just move my wrist back and forth like that doesn't seem like a big deal to you and me, but that's an ability to move your wheelchair. So there's a huge opportunity to create a quality of life. And the reason why this one is so special and near and dear to our hearts is that no one ever thinks they're going to get a spinal cord injury, right? Mm-hmm. No one ever thinks that routine epidural is going to make them paralyzed. No one thinks they're going to, hit a deer and wreck their car and be quadriplegic. So it really is robbing people of something that they don't deserve to be robbed of. And so we're working very hard to move this program forward. And in so many ways, it's similar to what we're doing in macular degeneration. Make the cells that you lose, put them in there, make sure they're stable and they're not rejected, and maybe that can lead to important clinical outcomes and benefits.
That's amazing. I mean, every time you do an epidural, they say something like 1% chance. And honestly, 1% chance, that's still uncomfortably high. 1% chance is fairly, that happens all the time, in other words.
Sounds great until you're the 1%. And then you say, now I care about this. So, there are about 18,000 serious spinal cord injuries in this country every year. So that's a lot of 1% that are hitting.
Right. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about VAC? I know we're running out of time, but that is your third major program. Just go ahead and give us a quick summary of what that's about. I believe we're running out of
Yeah, no, real quick. We manufacture a third kind of cell. It's one of the cells of the immune system called a dendritic cell, and it's responsible for, those cells are responsible for giving information to your immune system. So we've all learned about COVID and vaccines and how they work now. It's the same idea. You can select an antigen, you select information, you put it in a dendritic cell, and you put millions of those dendritic cells into a human, and you're trying to boost their immune response so that they can fight that tumor and, frankly, live a longer life.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing the information with us, Brian. I really appreciate it. It's very exciting stuff. Brent's on now with a cane or a broom to off stage. That's his job.
That is not true.
But figuratively.
The figurative cane.
Thank you so much for being on to speak with us, Brian.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity and interest, gentlemen. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
Really exciting stuff, Justin. I wouldn't give you the old heave ho or the cane when we're talking about absolutely life-changing stuff like this.
This is our special opportunity to meet, Brian. Brent, we'll always have this.
All right, sir. Well, thank you so much for hosting that, and I'll see you at the next BZ event.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.
It's a good guy right there. We're going to do our second Slido poll for the day. We haven't had a chance to get to these, but that's okay. We're going to hit a couple real quick. A daily chart of a stock closed yesterday at $12. Today, it opened at 10 and it closed at 13. Based on this information, today's candle should be green or red. Go. Answer the question now. Next question. An in the money blank option means the option holder has the opportunity to buy the security below its current market price. I'll read that one more time, and I'm going to hide my results. So it's basically like me covering my sheet in high school class. In the money blank option means the option holder has the opportunity to buy the security below its current market price. Is that a put option or is that a call option? And super quick reminder, participate in our Slido poll here today. At the end of the event, we are going to announce two winners of a Benzinga Pro 1-year subscription